Ho, ho, ho! Happy holidays from Live and Learn.
The following program, Live and Learn, is made possible by Aging Partners. Find out more on their website at agingpartners@lincoln.ne.gov.
Celebrations and holiday traditions play a part in every faith and culture. I'm KRISTEN STOHS, and today on Live and Learn, we will be exploring several. I'm very pleased to introduce my guest today, Karen Zins, who will be talking about Swedish holiday traditions. Welcome, Karen.
I appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. Could we start by having you tell us about your own heritage?
Well, I'm 100% Scandinavian, half Norwegian, a quarter Swedish, and a quarter Danish. My great-grandparents really have similar stories in that they immigrated from their respective countries with their families when they were very young and settled in central Minnesota. They all lived and helped their families farm homesteaded land.
Wonderful. Wow. So it goes way back.
Way back.
The most important holiday of the year in Sweden is Christmas, and it starts on December 13th with St. Lucia Day. And I believe you have a reading to share with us about this legend.
Yes. St. Lucia was a young Christian girl who was martyred on December 13th in the year of 304 AD. The story is told that she would bring food to the persecuted Christians in Rome who lived in the catacombs under the city. She would wear candles on her head so her hands were free to carry the food. Legend has it she appeared centuries later in a glow of light on a bow of a strange ship bringing food during the midst of a severe famine in Sweden. There are many historical proofs of her life and its impact. As early as the 6th century, she was venerated in Rome among the Virgin Martyrs and celebrated and canonized by the Church. At some point, she became the patron saint of Milan.
And we have a beautiful doll to show today as you continue to tell us how this legend has continued in modern times.
Commemorating St. Lucia Day, December 13th, has been a tradition in the Scandinavian countries since the 19th century. The eldest daughter, dressed in a white robe, red sash, wearing a crown of lingonberry branches and candles, wakes her family bright and early and serves them coffee, saffron buns, or ginger cookies. In public places, such as schools, hospitals, nursing homes, offices, churches, or wherever procession would take place, Lucia is often accompanied by a train of white-clad attendants. The girls wear tinsel in their hair and around their waists, and the boys wear tall paper cone hats with stars on them. They sing traditional folk carols while handing out sweet treats. Lucia means light, and the day celebrates the return of the sun in the midst of winter, and is a reminder of the light of Christmas coming into the world.
That's beautiful. That's just beautiful. You have actually experienced taking part in a St. Lucia festival?
I have. Back in the day, I attended Swedish Hospital School of Nursing in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Every December 13th, before dawn, our choir would follow St. Lucia through the darkened halls of the hospital, carrying lit candles and singing Children of the Heavenly Father, which is a beautiful Swedish hymn. It was a very moving experience for everybody, for patients, staff, and students alike, and I know I will never forget the beautiful tradition.
I can tell you get very emotional about this when you start to speak of it. It must have meant so much to you to be able to do this.
It did. It did. It was wonderful.
And isn't that the way with holiday traditions? They just tug at your hearts,
Yes.
I think, and that's the reason they're so important to continue year after year. You want to continue on those wonderful feelings and the traditions.
We do.
Oh, I love that. That's just beautiful. The decorations, of course, play a huge part in any celebration. And so we have a lovely little Swedish Christmas tree, I believe, to talk about.
Though the tradition of the Christmas tree was introduced to Sweden from Germany in the 1700s, it wasn't until this century that the majority of the country adopted this custom. Usually the tree isn't brought into the home until 1 or 2 days before Christmas and is traditionally decorated with Swedish flags, with brightly wrapped candies, ginger cookies in various shapes, red hearts, apples, straw ornaments, and electric lights or candles. Families sometimes have goats made of straw to guard the tree, although I have no idea where that tradition came from. Poinsettias and red tulips are often used to decorate the home, as well as sprigs of straw, which represents the baby Jesus manger.
That's really lovely. It's a very colorful, wonderful presence, I think. And we also have a cute little Christmas gnome, this little guy down here on the table, and he is called Tomte.
After the meal, a friend or family member dresses up as Tomte.
Oh.
Unlike Santa Claus, he is believed to have lived under the floorboards of the house or barn, protecting the family and livestock during the year. The make-believe Tomte, wearing a white beard and dressed in a red robe, distributes gifts from his sack. Unfortunately, modern Christmas is quickly catching up in Sweden, and Tomte is beginning to lose his original identity to the commercial Santa figures.
Really? Okay. Oh, he's charming, just the way he is. I love it. And we have to talk about the food, because no celebration is complete without the food. Could you please talk about the traditional foods of the season that you love to prepare?
Well, growing up in a Scandinavian home, lutefisk and lefse were a staple in the Christmas meal.
Okay.
I must admit, I do love both. My family isn't so sure, but we'll eat a few bites to humor me if I do prepare it. Lutefisk is a dried cod preserved with a lye solution.
Oh.
Before cooking, it is soaked in water for several days to rehydrate it, and then it's baked or boiled and served with butter, which is traditionally Norwegian, or a white cream sauce, which is Swedish. If you can get beyond the smell, and I pause on that, and it is prepared properly so the fish is firm and flaky, it really is delicious.
Okay.
Lefse, which this is lefse, is basically a potato tortilla, which is spread with butter and rolled. Many like sugar on it also. Other foods I've served at Christmas include Swedish meatballs, Swedish potato sausage, pickled herring, scalloped corn, sweet red cabbage, and Swedish rye bread. What I remember most and love baking are the sweet Christmas treats, such as spritz cookies, ginger cookies, krumkaka, sandbakels, and almond cake. Along with a variety of cookies, dessert is usually quite simple, typically a rice pudding.
Okay. And is there a legend or a tradition that goes along with this rice pudding?
There is.
That's so.
A popular tradition is to put an almond in the pudding. Whoever gets the almond makes a special wish, or an earlier tradition hints that person would be married within the coming year. I remember my Swedish grandma Daisy served rice pudding most Sunday evenings year-round. She always had a special treat for whoever would get the almond. And the pudding itself was never a favorite for me.
Okay.
But finding the almond certainly was. And a Swedish meal is never complete without coffee. It is usually served with cream and sugar.
Wonderful, wonderful. I would love to have a Swedish meal right now. It sounds delicious. Your organization that you are active in is the Norden Club, and I believe we have a little bit of contact information to put on the screen while you talk about Norden Club.
Norden Club is an organization established 66 years ago to help preserve the cultural heritage of Scandinavia. That includes Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and Iceland. We have 3 dinner meetings a year in March, May, and September, and we have a Christmas smorgasbord in December. This year we'll be celebrating our Swedish heritage, and we will have an ethnic dinner, we will have Swedish music, and we are going to have a St. Lucia festival. And it's going to be held on Monday, December 9th. So for any information about the dinner or the club, my contact information, it will be up on the screen.
So new members are always welcome.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Karen, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to hear that the Swedish tradition is alive and well in the Zins household.
It is.
And we certainly thank you for sharing your joyous celebration with us today.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. And Karen and I would like to wish all of you a very good Yule as Live and Learn continues.
Happy Hanukkah! Oh, we have with us the spiritual lay leader of the Tifereth Israel Synagogue right here in Langen, Nancy Koren.
Hello.
Happy Hanukkah. Am I saying that correctly?
You're saying it correctly. I'll say back in Hebrew, Chag Sameach.
Easy for you to say. Now, what does Hanukkah, I mean, a lot of us say it, but what does it really mean?
Hanukkah is a festival of lights. That's one of the translations of it, that takes us back in history to the time before the Common Era, before the beginning of the counting of one.
BCE.
Right. And
before
so
the
Common Era.
Common Era.
Right. And so it takes us back to a time during the rule of the Syrian Greek Empire, and the Syrian Greeks had made their way into Jerusalem. And one of the things that they did was that they took over the temple, which was the major place of worship for Jews, took over the altar, made it an altar to Greek gods, and basically said that people within their empire needed to all be one. They couldn't have their own customs and traditions. And so what ends up happening is that they outlawed Torah, which is the commandments found in the 5 books of Moses that keep Jews on the path of Jewish living. They outlawed the worship on the Sabbath, which was called Shabbat.
And that was Friday.
That was Friday night to
Saturday
night, the 7th day. They started sacrificing pigs on altars, which pigs weren't kosher, and so that was a problem. And wouldn't let Jews circumcise their sons, which was a way of bringing them into the peoplehood of Israel. And basically said, you know, if you're going to be part of our empire, you can't be you. And that was a problem for Jews. And so Hanukkah was about a small band of individuals known as the Maccabees who decided to resist that. They could see changing names, they could see maybe going to places where, you know, Greek culture was, you know, learning about theater, learning about the things that were good about Greek culture, but they couldn't see giving up their identity and assimilating totally. And so what they did was they basically rebelled, and the upshot was that when the small band of individuals came back into Jerusalem, they retook the temple, they rededicated it. And if you look at the word Hanukkah, it means rededication or dedication. And so when they rededicated the temple to make it into a Jewish place of worship once again, they had to light a light that was always constant.
And we have the lights with us today. We have the wonderful menorah, and maybe you'll explain for us the older one.
Okay, so the older one actually was my grandmother's, and it's very traditional. And in terms of the menorah itself, some people call it a menorah. That's kind of the English word for it, I guess. This is what I would call a Chanukiah. It has the places for 8 candles, and then it has the lighter candle. So it has actually 9 branches, and one of the branches is just used to light the other candles on each night. And this one is set up for all 8 nights, the traditional one. And then I have one here that's pretty artistic.
Yeah, a much more modern version than the old one.
Actually, I'm going to turn it around. If I were facing it when I was saying the blessings at night, which is one of the major parts of Hanukkah, is I would always start with the day that I'm on, and I would put in a candle. And so this is set for the first night. This one here in the back is set for all 8 nights, and I would light from left to right. I'd put them in from right to left. And so it informs you what night you're on. It also informs you that as each night of Hanukkah happens, you increase the light. And one of the things we do is we put it in our window.
Yes, that's so beautiful.
It is beautiful. I loved it when I was in Israel a couple of years ago. My granddaughter was lighting lights in the windows. And if you walk through the streets in any city and you see lights in the window with the menorah or the Chanukiah, you know that it's a Jewish family observing.
Wait, is there any
Hanukkah.
difference in the candles? In other words, I see the various colors. Does that
No,
significant?
it's just festive. It's just, you know, whatever people want to do in terms of the candles that they put in. I know that the ones in this modern one were hand dipped from someplace in Israel, which is nice to be able.
What happens if you forget one night?
If you forget one night, or you're busy one night, probably there's no time frame on it, so you could do it when you remember that night.
So, oops,
Yeah.
another candle goes in.
Right, so-
And I know this holiday's big significance of food. Oh, the wonderful food,
Yes.
especially the latkes.
And it's not great for your cholesterol, but it's very tasty. So one of the things, if you're thinking about latkes, potato pancakes fried in oil are very, very popular. At our congregation, we have a group of men. They bike together on Sunday mornings, and that's their little project as they come into our synagogue.
Okay, I'm seeing Gary Hockman right there in the middle
Yeah.
with the, like, pretending he's the baker.
Yes.
Are those guys actually making these?
They actually make them from scratch.
Is that the only time they come in the kitchen and cook? Or
For us, yes. They do it in their own homes, but yes. So it's a fun time for us
and
all.
it's like a potato pancake,
It's
isn't
like
it?
a
Oh,
very-
they're wonderful.
They are excellent. So, in fact, last night my granddaughter, in honor of wanting to eat some latkes, said, let's have a little bit before.
Just a taste. Okay, and there are a lot of interesting ceremonies and rituals that go along with it. One of which is the use of the little toy.
Right, the dreidel.
The dreidel.
Right.
Okay, explain the. It's very, very tiny here. I thought that they would be bigger. It's like a spinning
I
top.
do have a spinning top that's made out of wood. It doesn't matter what it's made
How
out
about
of.
that? How
You're
about
very
that? How
good.
about that? How
Yay,
about that?
You did it.
So
So when it lands, there's
uh-oh.
So do it again.
Now wait. Now I didn't do so good that time. Okay, here we go. The official dreidel
Yes.
spinner. There we go.
There
That's a
are
good one.
4
Okay.
letters on it. If you're living in any country outside of the land of Israel, the letters are Nun, Gimel, Hey, and Shin.
I think
You
our
just-
hands are
okay.
covering up
Sorry.
what actually
So you
it is.
just got a Gimel.
I got a Gimel.
Gimel. So let's say you had a pile of coins or a pile of candy,
Yeah.
and everybody put one into the pot. When you did your spinning and you got the Gimel, you got to give one to the pot. If I spun and I got Nun, that would be none. I get nothing, and you get to spin again. And if we get a Shin, you get to put one in. And if you get Hey, you get half the pot. And it keeps
Well,
kids busy.
who gets the pot? I want to know who gets the pot. The best spinner of the
The best
dreidel?
spinner after all of the pots is gone is basically it. Keeps kids busy. And the one thing about it is that the letters are significant because it means a great miracle happened there. So it is significant.
Well, speaking of the great miracle, of course, the Star of David, and the significance of this is, Nancy?
Okay, so it's a 6-pointed star, and it's been used throughout history. It's called the Magen David, the Shield of David, and there are different interpretations for it. Sometimes when you look at a triangle, you might see the top, the side, and the opposite side, and so sometimes people say each triangle represents God, Israel, and Torah, which are 3 major components of Judaism. And then if you look at another interpretation, you might hear that the major center which stabilizes the star is the Shabbat, the Sabbath day.
Shabbat,
and
yes,
each
Friday,
one of
the Friday,
right,
right.
the Friday to Saturday. It's actually Saturday. Each triangle represents each day of the week.
Okay, and we just have a moment left, but you have to, only the guys get to wear the yarmulke, right?
No, I do that now when
Oh.
I pray. But in different groups of Judaism, you might just see men doing it, Orthodox men.
Yeah. The Jews in Lincoln go back to 1903, which is so wonderful, long traditional history. And of course, building at 18th and L Street, the first synagogue.
The synagogue that became our synagogue, which is Tifereth
Well, now,
Israel.
Tifereth Israel Synagogue at 18th and L Street, which became the Lincoln Community Playhouse, thanks to Leo Hill.
Thanks.
And a wonderful history there, and the Playhouse was there for like 28 years and then moved in 1972 to their place. But you're still over there at 32nd and Sheridan Boulevard.
We are.
And just quickly, I know we're running out of time, but the difference between the temple and the synagogue.
Each one is related to a different branch of Judaism. The South Street Temple is related to the Reform movement, and we're related to the
traditional,
conservative
yeah, the
movement.
traditional and conservative.
Conservative.
I never think of you as conservative, Nancy Corin, the lay spiritual leader of the Tifereth Israel Synagogue. And happy Hanukkah. Enjoy the holidays, and Live and Learn. We'll be right back.
What does Medicare cover? How can I afford to keep living in my home? When I need help with house and yard work, who can I turn to? Why am I so tired? Am I eating right? Should I exercise? Where can I go for answers to my questions about aging?
Aging Partners is the place to call when you have questions on aging. Our experts are here to help you with unbiased answers for you or your loved ones. Aging Partners, we're only a phone call away.
Welcome back to Live and Learn. I'm Harlan Johnson. You know, this time of year, I think about our community and I think about the other cultures that we have in Lincoln, because I know that about 2% of Lincoln's population, or over 5,000 people, are from the Asian culture. And they have many beautiful customs that have been passed down from generation to generation. And so we're going to talk about that. My guest today is Dow Nguyen, who is president of the Vietnamese community here in Lincoln. He's been in Lincoln for about 38 years, and he's an active leader in our community. So, Dow, thank you for coming and being on the Live and Learn show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay. Now, when we think of the Asian community and the holidays, I initially thought of Chinese New Year. Is that the same as other Asian culture, New Year's, etc.?
Yes, very same. We, beside the solar calendar, we use the lunar calendar. So the China, Korea, and Vietnam observe the same New Year.
So you observe the lunar year, okay?
Yes.
Now, this year, I know you told me we're in the year of the snake.
Yes, of the snake.
Okay,
yeah.
tell me about how that's selected, or a little bit about the year of the snake.
Oh, the year of snake is based on the Chinese zodiac. Within the 12 years, they rotate. The cycle of 12 years, they rotate.
Every 12 years, okay.
Every 12 years, and within the 60 years. I will talk a little bit later if we have more time. But this year, the year of snake, it starts on February 10, 2013, and it will end on, I believe, January 30th, 2014.
And so then that begins the year of?
The snake. Well, after that, the year of the horse.
The horse?
Yes.
Okay. And who determines that? Is that just
That's, like the very ancient people determine it, not the religion or not the government or anything. They base it on the lunar calendar.
Okay. Now, what about the year of the horse? What do we celebrate the year of the horse?
The year of the horse, like we look at the characteristic of the horse. The kind of animal like to move, like to travel. Horse were born for race and travel. So we celebrate the year of the horse like the year of the snake. Each year had its own characteristic. And the people who were born in that year had some kind of things happen to them different with the people who are born in different years. So in the horse, the year of the horse, we celebrate the new year with the hope of success and traveling,
All right. Now, that was one of the questions I was going to ask there. What are there some festivities then that take place the year of the horse or specific about for that year?
Yes. For every year, we always had activity and festivity for the year. Like on the year of the snake, we had the dragon dance. We have we call it lion dance. And in the years of the horse, we do the same thing every year. But we might have some kind of symbolization, a picture of the horse instead of a picture of the snake or the dragon. We had 12 animals. So in the year of the horse, we how to explain about this one, because each year we had to do the same thing. We celebrated something. You know what I mean? Like we had dragon dance, we had the lion dance, and we had some kind of meeting. People talk about, like in the house we can decorate with this kind of flower. In the altar, we had some kind of food. It looked similar to it.
Okay. Well, now you mentioned foods. What are some traditional foods that might be found at a festival? And you've brought some nice looking things here.
You can see the egg roll is very
Sure,
common, in any festivity. But special in the year, like Lunar New Year, people do cook the, here we call it bentang, and this we call benching. Benching had a square shape. The square shape symbolized for the earth. It shows the abbreviation for the Vietnamese people to the abundance of the earth. And the bentang, it had a rouse. And also we had another kind, very round, like the sun, symbolized for the sun. That means the food we wrap inside. We had a moonbeam, and we do have pork in it, wrapped with the banana leaves, and we cook for at least 12 hours. Why we have those kind of food? Because in the Lunar New Year, we try not to cook.
Okay.
Yeah, because we believe we had the we call it kitchen god stay with you for the whole year. But the week before the Lunar New Year, we had the we prepare for him or for her.
So it's all prepared ahead of time then?
Yeah, the food.
Yeah.
I mean, I try to explain why we use this kind of food, because we prepare for the journey to, the kitchen god, go back to the heaven to report everything happened in the family to the J Emperor. So during the time he not here, he not in the family, we supposed not to cook.
Okay.
So we
Now,
prepare all kind of food to for those 3 days.
do you do the same traditions here in America that you might do back in, say, Vietnam?
Yes, we do. But here we don't have more lots of things like we had in Vietnam. But if you go to the Chinatown, you go to some big town, they had some kind of celebration over there. And also people cook those kind of food too. So a lady just cooked for me those kind of food and brought us to my house, so I can be ready for the show.
I was impressed that you prepared this just for the show and had somebody cook it for you.
Yeah, because we don't have it until close to the Lunar New Year.
Yeah.
Lunar New Year for the next year will be on, January 30th.
Yeah, so this normally would be something that you would have January 30th.
Right.
Right. Okay. Well, now, hey, I've been impressed. You have some sweets here for the kiddos.
Yes.
And is this prepared primarily for that January 30th this year then?
No, for any Lunar New Year.
Okay.
And then Lunar New Year for everybody in the family, beside all the foods.
Okay. Well, we've got a little bit of flavor of the Oriental lunar holiday.
Yeah.
And that flavor is obviously in the food. And you have some cards there that are Happy New Year. I see the firecrackers.
Christmas card here. We send the card to friends, relatives.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also we do have we got money, lucky money to give out to the kids. So they will show the respect to the oldest, to the elders and the ancestors.
Okay, well, thank you, Dow, for bringing all this thing. My guest has been Dow Huynh, and he is with the Vietnamese community. And Live and Learn will be back right after this.
My name is Sam Truax, and today my guest on Live and Learn is going to tell us about some of the traditional holiday celebrations of a segment of our society, the Native Americans. My guest is Jessica James Grant, the Workforce Program Director at the Lincoln Indian Center. Thank you for showing us some traditional dress by wearing it today, Jessica.
Thanks.
We're showing the pictures of the Indian Center, and the totem and other features tell us what culture of interest the Indian Center is geared to. But for all of the holiday celebrations, do you organize that and the staff, or do the different clients of the Indian Center organize those on their own? And
Well, it's a combination of both, Sam. A lot of our program directors and programs organize different events, but we heavily depend upon our volunteers to help and organize and decorate and help cook. So we definitely depend on our volunteers.
And is there some set celebrations that actually that occurs on, or do they kind of?
Well, there's different celebrations that we have at the Indian Center. In November, we are having a Thanksgiving dinner, and I believe throughout New Year's, we have a New Year's celebration dance. We have other dances and celebrations throughout there. Our biggest celebration is our annual powwow that we have in August.
August, yeah. Well, as you told me, many of the Native Americans actually have converted to Christianity. Is there any specific tradition for Christmas celebration?
Thank you for asking, Sam. Well, back in the 1880s, Native American people were put into the boarding school system, and Christianity was the primary focus of assimilating Native people into mainstream traditions. And so since that time, we as Native people have celebrated different holidays, and Christmas has been part of that as well. At the Indian Center, we have Toys for Tots that we do, Santa Operation, Santa celebration that we have as well, to give out toys to the community people.
So actually they're kind of the Christian traditions just to benefit your clientele to some degree.
Yeah, to some degree, and it's not just for Native people too.
Yes.
I mean, it's for, we serve a lot of poverty, low-income people at our Indian Center, and so that's where that goes.
Well, before talking to you, I had the impression that every Indian celebration was a powwow, but you kind of educated me to the fact that the powwow is a specific celebration, and that's what occurs in August there. So
yeah, and every tribe has their own traditional celebrations. For instance, the Omaha tribe of Nebraska, they have their war dances and their Huska dances, and I think that brings a unique topic up in terms of celebrating like the harvest or celebrating a good war hunt in a traditional sense. But today, war dances can go on in celebration of an accomplishment. For instance, my husband, he had a war dance when he graduated from college, and it basically sharing the celebration with the community.
yes, when we're going to be showing pictures of the gourd dance, which occurred at the center on Veterans Day. And I believe that shows some of the specific traditions of a celebration like that.
Yeah, the gourd dance is basically, you have your center drum, your center drum group. It was brought up by the Kiowa tribe, and the men dance. It's a men's dance, and they wear red and blue on them, and it's basically to. It has several different significances. One significance would be night and day, to represent night and day. The women dance on the outside, so it basically celebrates. It's a traditional dance that is only done for the men.
Yeah, that's the main thing. There are traditions, like they're going clockwise instead of counterclockwise, and they are representing the earth and nature to some degree in there.
Definitely, in every dance and song, it is to mimic the natural world.
And the military is actually suggesting that you do have the war dance is probably a good representation of the Native American community, because so many of the Native Americans actually joined the service.
Yes, that is true, Sam. From way back from World War I, where we had Native American code talkers speaking the traditional languages of the different tribes. It wasn't only the Dene, the Navajo, but there was the Choctaw, the Chippewa. I mean, there was different tribes that were involved in the world wars that contributed to the success.
That kind of brings up the point that there are different traditions and different languages and different traditional dress and everything, and so much so that the code talkers couldn't. The enemy soldiers couldn't even figure out what they were talking about or ever break the code. See, so therefore the Indian traditions must be pretty complicated for even you.
That is true, Sam. But there's a lot of Native people that are represented in the military, that serve in the militaries, due to representing and defending our country.
How can people actually find out about some of the celebrations that they have? Do you have a website or something?
Yes, thank you, Sam, for bringing that up. We do have a website. It's www.indiancenterinc.org, and we also have a Facebook page.
Well, I would like you to stand up for a second so everyone can see your outfit. I would like to thank Jessica James Grant for being our guest today on Live and Learn to introduce us to some of the Native American holiday traditions. Thank you very much, Jessica.
Thank you, Sam.
Live and Learn will be back shortly.
What does Medicare cover? How can I afford to keep living in my home? When I need help with house and yard work, who can I turn to? Why am I so tired? Am I eating right? Should I exercise? Where can I go for answers to my questions about aging?
Aging Partners is the place to call when you have questions on aging. Our experts are here to help you with unbiased answers for you or your loved ones. Aging Partners, we're only a phone call away.
Welcome to another episode of Live and Learn. I'm your host, Tim Francis. Today, my guest is Marvie Sullivan. And Marvie, we're going to visit about the holiday celebration Kwanzaa.
Okay.
Tell us what that involves and the origins of it.
Kwanzaa is a Swahili word that means first fruits. And it began in approximately 1966 when a Pan-African professor in California decided we as African Americans need to celebrate ourselves and our ancestry. So he came up with the word Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is based on 7 principles, and the holiday begins the day after Christmas. So it's celebrated December 26th through 27th. And as a part of, 26th through January 1st. And as a part of that, each day you light a candle, you talk about the principle, and then you have some discussion about how you can make that principle a part of the year that's going through, that's coming up.
So it's kind of a harvest celebration as
right.
well.
Mm-hmm.
And what are those principles and how are they manifest?
The first principle is unity, and they're universal principles. And as you start your Kwanzaa, you light the first candle for the day, which starts in the middle, so that's unity. The second day, you light the candle called self-determination. And that's the second candle, and you write. And you talk about self-determination, how we can determine for ourselves who we are, what we can do, making good choices. The third day is the principle of collective works and responsibilities, where we work together to make a better lives for ourselves, our neighborhood, our community, and our world. On the fourth day, the principle is NIA, purpose. The fourth day is cooperative economics. That means we support people in our community, our business. You own a barbershop, I own a store, I sell stuff to you, I turn around and come back to you and have you cut my hair. So we support each other in that kind of way. The fifth principle, and it's the shortest principle, is called purpose. And it's in the African word, it means nia. That means we all have a purpose. We're all here for some purpose. So we talk about that celebration. The sixth principle is Kumba, creativity, and that falls on New Year's Eve, and that's the day we have our feast. So we come dressed in our African garb, we bring potluck dinners, we celebrate who we are, we do our libation statements, which we take time to recognize our ancestors, the people that have come before us. We take time to talk about our children and instill in them values and to help them plan for the future. So that's that's Kumba. And then the last day is faith, and that's Imani. And we just acknowledge of who we are and our Creator.
How long have you and your family been?
Gosh, we've been doing Kwanzaa approximately 22 years. Do you want to know how that started with me?
Please do.
I had never heard of Kwanzaa before. And me and my son, my mother lives in Cincinnati, and me and my son were there one year during the holidays. And I saw in the paper they were having this community Kwanzaa. And I went down to that and saw that they were talking about these principles and stuff. And I came back and told my son, we're going to start doing that from now on. So I went like everybody else. I went to the books at the library and got online on different things to find out about the Kwanzaa and stuff like that. So we've been doing it approximately a little over 20 years.
So now you involve your grandchildren in it.
I involve my grandchildren because Kwanzaa, I view it as a holiday where we can instill in the generation below us what their ancestors are, what kinds of contributions we as African Americans have made to this country. So it's an African American holiday, but it's not a holiday that celebrates a person or a religion. It's a celebration of ourselves as a people.
And it doesn't replace Christmas.
No, it doesn't replace Christmas. No, we have a Christmas tree right in our house there with the presents underneath it. And then on the side, I have my Kwanzaa table with all the symbols and things on it. So,
you told me you knew Kwanzaa kind of hit a mainstream.
Right.
What was the marker for that?
One year I said, Kwanzaa has arrived. Hallmark now has a Kwanzaa card. So when you've been recognized by Hallmark. Right. And then one year the post office made a Kwanzaa stamp. So Kwanzaa, I think it's a nationally known kind of celebration. Okay.
That helps a lot to know how you were attracted to it. Has it become a more prominent celebration in Lincoln?
It has.
You have a following?
It started out first in just me doing it at my house, and then I have friends over to be a part of that. And now they do it in the community now. Malone has the annual Kwanzaa celebration that I participate in. Some of the different organizations may have a Kwanzaa as part of what they do, as part of whatever they may do. For years, I've done it at a couple of the community centers. One year, even the York Women's Prison asked me to come out, and I did Kwanzaa with the women out there. So, and I've done little presentations in the schools and those kinds of things to talk about Kwanzaa. It's something I really enjoy, something, that gives me a chance to talk about African Americans and what they have contributed, and then also to talk to children, to say, hey, you are a part of all of this that goes on. And they're universal principles. We all can talk about unity.
And benefit.
And
benefit from those principles.
That's true.
And establish those values and reinforce those values.
That's right.
So if one wanted more information about Kwanzaa, it's available.
Right. Like I said, the Malone Center has a celebration every year. Of course, you can always go to your local library They have books on Kwanzaa. Those are the stores. I'm sure you can Google it.
I'm sure you can Google anything.
Sure you can.
Marvie Sullivan, I thank you for being with us and explaining Kwanzaa to us.
For having me.
Do you have one final word for us on the subject of Kwanzaa?
In the tradition of the Swahili word, Habaragani, let's pull together.
Thank you very much. This is Tim Francis for Live and Learn, and we'll be back with more holiday stories. Thank you.
Welcome to Live and Learn. My name's Tom White, and my guest today is Norma Sommerheiser from the American Historical Society of Germans from Russia. And she's going to talk to us today about her family's Christmas traditions growing up here in Lincoln in the Germans from Russia community. And welcome.
Thank you.
Glad you're here. And so Norma, first of all, tell us a little bit about the society.
Well, the American Historical Society of Germans from Russia is an international organization headquartered here in Lincoln at 631D. And our mission is to collect, preserve, and disseminate as much information as we can about the Germans from Russia. And we think we've done a pretty good job because we believe that we have right here in Lincoln the largest collection of information on our people that exists anywhere in the world.
That's great. That's great. And
we're not done yet.
Oh, okay. And so what I really wanted to talk to you, because it's the holidays, talk a little bit about your Christmas traditions growing up in the community. So can you tell me a little bit about what happened leading up to Christmas?
Well, when I was a child, I was taken to a department store to see Santa Claus. Well, in Russia, and when our people came over to the United States in the early 1900s, they didn't have Santa Claus. They had the Pelznickel, or the Pelzmann.
The Pelzmann.
Pelz was, in German it's spelled P-E-L-Z, and it means fur. And the Pelzmann made house calls. He came to visit homes in the community during Advent. And he would go into a family's home dressed with a long fur coat, a belt around, it was probably a chain, something that rattled when he walked, and a strange looking hat, and a horrible looking mask, something like this.
Yeah. That's horrible.
And to complete the costume, he carried a large burlap bag. And when he went into the homes, he would ask the children if they had been good. Well, of course, the kids were going to say they had been good. But then he would ask the parents. And sometimes the children would all be sitting in a row, maybe, or all in the same room, and the father would say, well, this one was good, and this one was not so good. And he would say, well, which one was not good? And he'd point maybe to one of the smaller ones. And the Pelznickel would promptly sweep him up, put him in the burlap bag, and take him outside. Pure terror for that child, yes. But it didn't last very long. The Pelznickel would take him back in, and then he would pass out some treats for all of the children. This was during the Advent period. Now, 2 or 3 days before Christmas, the KRISTEN came. And the KRISTEN was a lady, or maybe a young woman, and she was dressed in a beautiful white dress and a white hat. Sometimes it was a fur hat, and sometimes a little crown of white flowers. And the Christkind, that means Christ child. And she represented the coming birth of Jesus, of the Christ child, and she represented the mercy or the goodness in the Christ child would bring to us. Yeah. And then our Christmas tradition, in our culture, home and family was utmost important because our people were leaving their homes in Russia, taking a long journey. But after everyone had housing, the first thing they wanted in their community was the church. And the highlight of our church year was the Christmas program in the church. And a few weeks before Christmas, the Sunday school teachers would hand each child a little piece of paper that had a verse on it, and that was your piece that you were to speak in the Christmas program on Christmas Eve. So we took those home and we worked and worked. Our parents, our mothers especially, were not going to let their kid be the one who didn't know their piece on Christmas Eve.
How long was the piece?
Not very long, maybe 3 or 4 little lines, depending on the age of the child.
Yeah.
The youngest ones learned a song, usually Away in the Manger or something like that. But the older ones had their piece, and we worked and we memorized and we rehearsed in the church what we were to do on Christmas Eve. And the big night came and we were all seated in our proper places. When it was time to do our piece, each class would walk to the front of the church, turn around, and when you did that, everything you had memorized left. When you were standing there seeing 200 or 300 or 500 or 600 people looking at just you. But we all made it. When we got back to our seats, of course, we remembered our verse perfectly. But it was too late then, but we weren't forgotten. When we left the church that night, each child was given a bag of treats. And the bag had an orange and an apple and nuts, usually nuts in the shell. And then candy, and the candy wasn't wrapped. But if you know Christmas candy, remember ribbon candy?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a little hard candy that looked like a raspberry.
Now,
and
in the couple of minutes we have left, you mentioned a song, a specific song?
Yes, one of there was congregational singing, and one of the songs was O du Fröhliche, O du Selige. The tune is the Sicilian Mariners Hymn, but it was a very up-tempo song, and everyone in the church sang. We were taught to sing like we meant it, and we did. And it was a very special service in the church for us.
I went by the Historical Society and I went to the bookstore and I found this book there. And it's available there at the bookstore. And it's wonderful. It was really delightful to read. So, and it has a lot of history too. So
yes.
I want to thank you so much for coming.
You're
And that I wanted you to teach me how to say Merry Christmas in German.
Fröhliche Weihnachten.
Fröhliche Weihnachten.
Weihnachten, yes.
Fröhliche Weihnachten. So Merry Christmas, everyone. And Norma, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And happy holidays, everyone.
I'm KRIS BECKENBACH. Welcome back to Live and Learn. The holiday season is a wonderful time to give and receive plants and fresh arrangements to brighten these shorter, darker days. My guest today is Bertine Loop. When she's not growing beautiful plants, she's growing families as a mental health practitioner in private practice here in Lincoln. You are one busy lady. Thank you for being with me.
Well, thank you for asking me too, Kris. I really enjoy this program and it's really a pleasure to be here.
Well, Bertine, our viewers may recognize your name from your show on KZUM radio, How's It Growing?
That's right.
How long have you been doing that?
It'll be 14 years. We have our anniversary this next week.
Well, wonderful. And in addition, you're an adjunct faculty for continuing education at Southeast Community College.
Yes.
And that's sec.edu.
Mm-hmm.
And then a University of Nebraska Master Gardener.
Yes.
So what is it you teach at Southeast?
Well, I started out teaching perennials, but then I was asked to expand into other things, sort of as the trade grew. One of my main interests is, how do things grow? It depends on soil, depends on sun, depends on water. So it doesn't make any difference if it's a perennial or an annual or if it's a vegetable. You need to know those things to grow those things.
All right. Well, this time of year, we're not growing much outside in Nebraska, but we do enjoy some holiday special arrangements. What are some of the plants you enjoy most this time of year?
Well, I brought some with me today. On the far left are Stars of Bethlehem, and that's a lovely plant to even have outside, and you can bring that in and enjoy it One thing I would say is anytime you get a bulb that's blooming, you buy it at a store now, you have to really work hard to get it to last outside because they forced it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then this next plant right here?
That plant is a paperwhite. I didn't know till several years ago that there are about 3 or 4 different kinds of paperwhites. Some have a higher odor than others do, but they all have a scent.
And you were sharing with me earlier that bulb looks familiar. These are related to?
Garlics and alliums.
Garlic, okay.
Garlic and onions, all those things that are in the allium family.
So we can see how they might have very strong and powerful odors.
Not only that, but they repel deer. People use them to repel deer. Daffodils also are very good to do that with.
Well, interesting. So we get these lovely plants and we want to give them to someone as a gift. How do we get them home safely?
Well, that's always been very interesting to me because I'll see people walk out with a plant, even at a quick shop. They'll just take a rose and walk it to their car and just take it on. But in fact, you should have it at least in a sleeve, cellophane, and then wrap it in paper just to protect it, because once temperatures get below 40 degrees here in Nebraska with the wind and the environment that we've got, you should have it double wrapped. So you might have it in cellophane at first, or you might have tissue around it, but then additionally you need to have a brown paper sack or something that goes around it. And don't hesitate to ask for that, because there was nothing worse for me than my mother saying, "That plant that you brought me died the next day." And I went, oops.
So it's not the plant's fault, it's how we transport them.
That's right.
So once we get them home, let's say we bring home that beautiful poinsettia, where are we going to store that in our home?
Well, you're going to bring it out and set it out for them for when you want to use it and have guests in your home. But then when you're not, give it some rest. They never ever like to be in direct sunlight because that'll wilt them very quickly, like even within an hour, depending on where your heat register is. Because the cold that comes in with the glass, if it's by a window, is counteracted by the heat that's coming out by the heat vent. So keep it about 10 feet from a window or that kind of light source, because the other part of that is, of course, the sunlight itself.
So the top of the television is not a good home.
No, not at all.
Not a good home for your plants. What's the right amount of water?
It depends on the plant, and that's why it's just so important for people to read the label. And when they get that plant, if you look at that and you want to hand that to me, it says different things on it. And people, oh, that's just a label. Well, it's a lot more than that. And if you get a plant or you're going to buy a plant and it doesn't have a label, ask for one, and from your person that helped you, or else when you go to check out, because it gives you all kinds of directions. It'll tell you the temperature range for it. It'll tell you how much light it needs. And all of these plants, because they're blooming, cannot tolerate direct sunlight because they're not outside plants. They're just very tender.
So they're hothouse and
yes, they are.
Pretty delicate, delicate flowers. So how do we know if it's getting too much or too little water?
Well, I was giving the example of I'd given a psychologist who works with me a really beautiful plant, and he came back with it. He said, oh, it started to die right away. And the container he had was sort of sloshing. And I said, well, obviously that's too much water. And then it wasn't getting water because the water was too far away from the base of the plant.
So sloshing is not good.
No, too much. People tend to either extreme overwater or extreme no water. That's a big mistake people make about sedums or even cacti, because if you have them outside and you're transplanting them, every plant needs some water. So you can't forget that.
So we get those beautiful cactus or the beautiful
Christmas cacti.
Christmas cacti, which are actually a cactus, aren't they?
They're in that family, yes.
Okay. What if we feel the need to give them a haircut? What's the best way to do that?
Well, depends on what kind of plant it is. And again, it would be on the directions, or you could call the garden center where you got it, or perhaps the florist, they would know, or the garden center. Otherwise, you can go online and just look that plant up, and it'll tell you about what it needs for being cut back and what its needs are. And I think right away about my Christmas cacti, then you break the nodule that was blooming off of it. And that's how you get it to grow and bloom again next year. But it's different for different plants. If you had a rose, it would be much different, or you had some other kind of plant besides that was going to go outside. Miniature roses are a very good example, because they are the toughest plant you can get. It grows on its own root, and so it's very hardy. But people think they just throw it away. And in fact, you can have it in a cool place and kind of dorm it, but keep it a bit watered, and then put it out with the rest of the roses in the spring.
And it'll do well.
It'll, with the right tender loving care.
So you mentioned bringing a plant back for next year. Do you keep poinsettias, or do you let them go, or how do you manage, or an amaryllis? Do you just cut that back, and how do you store that for the?
Well, with in the case of like an amaryllis, you do cut that back and you let it cool, and then there is a neb guide that we have that's excellent about it. Once you do that, about how to store it, you can leave it stored, or you can put it out in the shade, in the coolest part of your garden, in the shade, and it'll grow those long straps again. And then in the fall, you cut that back because it is its nutrition source.
Wow, we've got some beautiful things here. One of the things we talked about was wire-edged ribbon, and what an advantage that's been to bow tying.
That's right. For many people, it's been a great leap forward because before this, I don't know how they did it, you know, because you can tie anything with wire.
Wire, and make it look good. Well, some other resources besides the tag that we might find for caring for our beautiful winter treats, where might we look?
Well, you could call How's It Growing, because it's a live call-in show, and you just ask, and we answer any gardening question, or we'll find out about it and get back to the person. If it's during the season of farmers markets, you can come to the Master Gardener booth or table that's there with that of the manager, like at Old Cheney Road Farmers Market, and they in fact are joining other farmers markets and having an indoor market a week from Saturday. So they're really zooming in on this growing your own food.
Well, wonderful. Well, we want to thank you for being on Live and Learn and bringing in some early holiday beauty, and we really appreciate your wisdom that you've shared.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us for this episode of Live and Learn.
What does Medicare cover? How can I afford to keep living in my home? When I need help with house and yard work, who can I turn to? Why am I so tired? Am I eating right? Should I exercise? Where can I go for answers to my questions about aging?
Aging Partners is the place to call when you have questions on aging. Our experts are here to help you with unbiased answers for you or your loved ones. Aging Partners, we're only a phone call away.
We're going to have a Happy New Year.
How about you?
Happy New Year from Live and Learn.